Today I thought I'd show you how to make this little right angle weave bracelet. This bracelet is basically that right angle weave with some super duos and then some embellishment with crystals on the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what we're going to need for this project today. For this project, you're going to need super duos and probably about a half a tube of super duos. Then you're going to need 11-0 seed bead. I'm using an 11-0 metallic bronze Toho. Then you might want another color of 11-0. You don't have to use two colors, but I think I'm going to use two colors in the one I'm doing today. So this is an 11-0 lavender Toho. Then you'll need about 150, maybe a little more, a little less, depending upon the length of your bracelet. You will need a 4mm round fire polish bead. Of course, it can be any kind of 4mm round. It doesn't have to be a fire polish bead. You could use a pearl or crystal, whatever you wanted. But you will need about 150 of them. And this is an Alexandrite check fire polish bead. Then you will need an 8mm round. I'm using kind of this little disco ball crystal today for my 8mm round. And I believe it's a Chinese crystal. But it's really pretty. It's got all these different little colors in it. So I'm going to use that today for my 8mm. And let's go ahead and get started. Oh, you will also need a needle and 8-pound fire line, several yards. I'm using a size 10 beading needle. Okay, we're going to start by threading a full wingspan to 2 wingspan, whatever comfortable for you, of fire line onto your beading needle. And then we're going to pick up 4 of our fire polish beads along with a seed bead in between each one. So we will pick up fire polish bead and 11-0, fire polish bead and 11-0, a fire polish bead and 11-0, a fire polish bead, and an 11-0. So you will start with a fire polish bead and end with an 11-0. Let's bring this in a little closer here. And this is what you should have on your needle. Then you will just bring these down to the end of your thread. Leave yourself probably about a 6-inch tail. We can extend that to make it longer. I'm not sure if I actually want to use my tail or not, so I'm just going to leave a 6-inch. We'll find out. Sometimes I like to use it, sometimes as I'm sewing around doing my embellishments, I don't need it. So then I'm just going to come back through the first fire polish bead that I added, the one on my tail side, and I'm going to pull. Just like that. And then I'm going to sew back through all of the beads that I just put on my thread here. You get to where your tail is, sew past it, and then we'll just sew all the way to the other side so that our thread doesn't slide. So that's where my tail is. I'm just going to sew probably down to this bead right here. We're going to work out of the 11-0s, not the fire polish beads, when we do this right angle weave. So we're going to go through this little fire polish, or 11-0 right here. It's like, just like this. Now I have a new camera set up here, so I apologize if I get out of frame or if the lighting's off, or I'll be working on it. I moved, so it's I've got a whole different setup. So, like I said, if it's a little odd, I'll try to work it out. I promise. Okay, so now we're going to work out of this little 11-0 here. So we're going to pick up a series of 11-0s and fire polish beads. So we've got this one 11-0 here. We need to have 4 11-0s and 4 fire polish. So we're not going to pick up an 11-0 first because we're coming out of one. We're going to pick up a fire polish, an 11-0, a fire polish, an 11-0, a fire polish. They're running away from me. An 11-0 and a fire polish. So we'll need 4 fire polish beads and 3 11-0s on our needle, just like this. Now, you want to make sure that you have a fire polish bead on both ends because we're sharing the 11-0. So we're just going to come through, we're coming out here, we're going to come through the other side of the 11-0 here and pull. Just like this. Now, we're going to sew through until we get to our next 11-0. And you can, if you want to, if you feel like this is loose, you can sew all the way around the entire unit and exit an 11-0 if you'd like. We're going to work this direction out. This is going to be our next 11-0 we'll work a unit from. So I've come up through here, and now I'm going to pick up a fire polish and 11-0. So you'll have 4 fire polish and 3 11-0s on your needle, and you will start with a fire polish and end with a fire polish bead, just like this. Now we're coming out of this side of this little 11-0, we're going to go into the other side. And now we have 3 units. We need to add a unit down here. So we're going to sew all the way around until we get to this 11-0 here. So I'm going to turn my work, and we're going to sew through all of the 11-0 beads here. And now I'm coming out of the little 11-0 that I want to start my next unit in. Now you can see that this unit pulled a little bit right here. Either make sure your tension is really tight or sew all the way around and then come back to this bead that we're going to work out of. A lot of times I'll sew all the way around my right angle weave units. When I'm doing one needle right angle weave, it just makes it more secure. So now you can see we have got to make our next unit here. We've got an 11-0 here and 11-0 here. We're going to share the 11-0s in both of these 2 units. So if we have an 11-0 here and 11-0 here, we have to put a fire polish bead in between. So I'm just going to pick up, I'm exiting here, I'm going to pick up 1 fire polish bead, and I'm going to go down into this 11-0 here and pull. And now I have started my next unit here. So this bead, and this bead are a part of my next unit. So what I need to do is pick up 3 fire polish beads and with a 11-0 in between, starting with a fire polish and ending with a fire polish, like this. That way, since I have my 4th bead here and I have 2 beads here, I will have my entire unit of beads. So I'm coming out here. I need to come into this side here. Then I need to go through the fire polish bead and the 11-0 that I'm exiting, just like this. And then bring it down. Just pull your thread through. And now you have your next unit. Now we need to work over to this unit, this bead here, to start our next unit because we're working down this way. We'll make our length this way. So I am going to sew up through my new unit until I get to the bead that I want to add my next unit from. So here I am. I'm now exiting this little 11-0 right here. Now, I don't have anything but an 11-0 to share, so again, I'm going to pick up 4 fire polish beads and 3 11-0s. Start with a fire polish and end with a fire polish. So I'll go ahead and pick up my series of beads here. So this is what I have on my needle. And I'm coming out of this side. I'm going to go into this side, just like this. And so that's what I have now. Whoops, sorry about that. Let's get rearranged here again. So this is what it looks like. Now I need to sew through this bead and get through this bead so that I can make my unit here. So I'm going to turn my work over just so it's more accessible to my right hand, and I'm going to sew up through this fire polish bead and this 11-0, and I am going to pick up a fire polish bead. Now again, we are going to share these two here, 11-0s. We need to put a fire polish bead in between here, and we need to put 3 fire polish beads with our 11-0s here. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up a fire polish bead and an 11-0, a fire polish bead, an 11-0, and a fire polish bead. Start with a fire polish bead, end with a fire polish bead, and you should have these 5 beads right here. So I'm coming out here, I'm going to go into this little 11-0 right here. So basically you can just look at it and see what beads need to be added. I need 3 on this side, and now to finish my unit I need to add a fire polish bead from this 11-0 to this 11-0. Then that will finish this little middle unit, and it will finish this unit here. So I will pick up a fire polish bead onto my needle. I'll go from this 11-0 up into this 11-0 here and pull. And now I will work my way through here to this one, and we'll make one more set of units, and then we'll go to length. So I am now coming out, I sewed through here, I'm now coming out of this little 11-0 seed bead, and again we don't have anything to share with except for this 11-0, so we will pick up all 4 of our fire polish and 3 11-0s, and we'll start with a fire polish and end with a fire polish and have our 11-0s in between. So this is what you'll have. You're coming out of this side, you're going to this side right here and pull. Just like this. Now we need to sew over to this bead so that we can finish our unit here. So we're just going to sew up through all of these beads. Just like that. Now, again, I need to add this bead here, and then my 3 beads on the outside here. So whenever you're coming out on the inside, you'll see that it'll change. You'll either put your single bead in first and then your other 3 on the outside second, or it'll be the other way around. It just depends on which way your thread exits your beads as you're doing your second side of your right angle weave here. So since we're coming out here, we're going to pick up 1 fire polish bead like this, and we're going to go into this 11-0 here. And now we have started our unit. This bead, and this bead will be part of our next unit. So we will pick up a fire polish bead, an 11-0, a fire polish bead, and an 11-0, and a fire polish bead. Just like this. We're coming out of this 11-0 here. We're going to go into this 11-0 here, and the fire polish bead, and the 11-0 we're exiting. Just like this. And pull through. And that's what it should look like. Now I'm going to sew all the way back up to here so we can start our next unit. And we're going to go ahead and go to length. Now you'll want to do with this particular neck or bracelet, you'll want to make your ends touch each other when you go to length. So if you want to test it around your bracelet, if you want to make a 6-inch bracelet, then you're going to go ahead and go to 6 inches. that way you'll have 6.5 when you're done, a little over 6. So what I'm saying is you don't want to leave an inch gap on this one. Otherwise it'll be too short. So you go completely to your length, and then you will add your clasping that we're going to do, and it'll be just a little bit above the length that you want. That way you'll have a little movement on your wrist. So if you have a 6-inch wrist, this will come out to be 6 1/4, 6.5, if you make it 6 inches. If you make this weave all the way to 7 inches, then it'll come out to be 7 1/4, 7.5, something like that. So go ahead and go completely to your length that you want, and we will be back. Okay, so I have gone to length. I've made mine just at 7 inches. Now I want mine to be just a little above 7 inches since I have a 7-inch wrist. So I'm going right to it, just maybe a smidge under, and you can see on my wrist, I will show you how I want it to measure out. If you're using your wrist, it's going to come and just barely touch, just like that, or even just a tiny bit away. But you don't want it to overlap, and you don't want it to have a big gap there, because the way we're going to clasp this doesn't make a whole lot of room. So it'll be too small if you make it any other way. So it needs to be right around your wrist like that. So mine being 7 inches is exactly 18 boxes. If you count the rows here, you'll count the little box in the middle of each set here on one row, and 1, 2, 3, and you'll get 18 of them right at 7 inches. And if you're going to make a shorter bracelet, of course you'll have less. But that gives you a frame of reference to know how many boxes basically it takes. And 7 is the most common size for a bracelet. So you may want to stay right at that if you're making it to sell. If you're making it for someone who's very small, then of course you're going to make it smaller. If you're making it for someone who's big, then you'll have to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so here we are. We're coming out of this little 11-0 right here. So what we're going to go ahead and do, since we're right here on the end, is we're going to go ahead and make our little loops for our clasp, and then on the other end we'll put our beads that will loop around with our little loops we're going to make right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up, I think in my original one, I'm going to use both colors. I believe that I used 17 beads to go around. So we're going to use 17 11-0 seed beads if you're using an 8mm round bead for your clasping like I am. So we will use the 8mm round beads for our embellishment and for our clasping if you do it the way I'm doing it. And if you're doing it that way, then you will need 17. So you just start by alternating. I'm going to start with my other color of seed beads, and I'm just going to alternate them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And this is what I have. I'm coming out of this side of this little bead here. I'm going to go into the other side and pull. And now I'm going to sew around this about 3 times and just make sure that it's nice and secure, and we'll be back. Okay, so I have sewn all the way around my loop and secured it, and now I'm coming out of this little bead on the bottom that I started in, and I need to sew down through this unit and up to this bead here. So I'm just going to follow my original thread path of my right angle weave until I get up to this bead here. So I'm going to go down into this bead and then over this way, up into this bead here, into the 11-0 here, and then up into this little 11-0. So just make sure you follow your thread path, that you're not crossing any intersections and leaving little tags of thread. So you don't want to ever sew from here to here or here to here. You have to follow your thread path when you're doing right angle weave. So now we're coming out of this bead here, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to pick up 17 beads. We're coming out of this side after we pick up our 17 beads, alternating colors. Then we will come back through the little 11-0 here. Then we'll sew through our 17 beads 3 times, and we'll be back. Okay, so I have gone ahead and put on my 17 beads, sewed around them 3 times to make sure they're nice and secure. And now I'm coming out of this little 11-0 seed bead right in the bottom here after securing it the last time. I want to work up into this little 11-0 up here so I can start putting my Super Duo embellishment on my body of work. So I am going to sew, I'm coming out here, I'm going to sew into this fire polish bead right here, and then I'm going to sew into this 11-0 right here. Turn it so you can see it here. And we're going to start a little embellishment with Super Duos. So choose some Super Duos, and we're going to use our second color of seed beads too. So I'm going to use my lavender seed beads now. And I'm going to use my amethyst Super Duos. And make sure you choose a little pile of Super Duos, inspect the holes, make sure that both holes are good. Or as you're doing your work, what I like to do is just poke my needle through both sides before I pick it up if I haven't inspected them, to make sure that both sides are good. And so you can do it that way as you're working. It takes a little longer, but it takes a little while to sort through them in the beginning too, so I guess it's about even. Alright, so what we're going to do is we are going to pick up a Super Duo, an 11-0 of our second color, a Super Duo, an 11-0, and a Super Duo. So we'll have 3 Super Duos and 2 11-0s. We're coming out of this side of our little 11-0 here. We're going to go into the opposite side, just like this. And now we're going to sew through this one more time because it's not very stable. So I'm going to go ahead and sew through all of these beads I just added one more time. And I'm going to sew back through the 11-0 on my work. I'm sorry, I'm getting out of frame there. Oh, goodness. Okay, I have to rearrange. Sorry, guys. I can't sew that way. There we go. Now, this next step is kind of weird. I probably should be using smoke fire line with this dark of a Super Duo so that you won't see my fire line as much on my Super Duos. However, I'm using a very light see-through translucent bead, so I needed to use my fair fire line. So anyway, what you're going to do is you're coming out of this little 11-0 here. We're going to come up into our first Super Duo like this. And then we're going to go down into the second hole of our Super Duo here. Then we're going to pick up a Super Duo, and we're going to drop it down. And this is where it gets to be kind of a pain in the rear end. Just kind of hold it the best you can like this, and then go back up through the second hole of the Super Duo you just added. Push it down against the last one so it kind of lines up underneath. It doesn't have to be perfect, but because your next step will kind of push it in, but just kind of push it up under the Super Duo like that. And now this is the Super Duo we'll work out of for our next unit here. So we've already got one Super Duo, so we're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, a Super Duo, an 11-0 seed bead, and a Super Duo. And then we're going to come back through this little 11-0 on our body of work here. And then now you can see we're loose and this one's flying up in the air here. Let me get real close so you can see what we're doing. Now we're going to go, if we're coming out here, we're going to go into the second hole of the super duo that we added in our step right before we made the rest of the unit here. Just like that. So I've just sewn up through it. I'm going to sew back through until I get to the next super duo. So my very last super duo on the unit here, I'm coming out of the bottom hole of it here, this first hole, the inside hole. I'm going to move myself to the outside hole. I'm going to have to turn my work, I apologize. I'm going to go to the outside hole right here. And then I'm going to pick up a super duo, and this time we're coming out of the top, so we'll add our super duo on top for our next unit here. So we'll just drop it down, and then just kind of hold it the best you can, like this, and go into the next hole of the super duo you just added. Just like that. So it lays on top. And then you're not going to worry about picking up an 11/0 seed bead. We're going to attach here. But as you can see, our super duos on the bottom don't have 11/0 seed beads, just on the top of them. So we're going to attach into this little 11/0 seed bead on our work. So we're just going to go down into it, like this. And then we're going to add the rest of our super duos for our unit. So we will pick up a super duo because it's the next thing that will be down next to this 11/0 seed bead. You'll know, you just can look at your previous ones and just follow and make sure that you do what's done on the previous ones. So we'll pick up a super duo, we'll pick up an 11/0, and we'll pick up a super duo and an 11/0. And then we'll come around, we're coming out here, we're going to come around to the second hole right here, the inside hole of our super duo we just added. And we're going to go through it. And then we're going to sew up through this 11/0 here. Just like that. And we have our next unit. Let's do one more. So we're coming out of this bead right here, the 11/0. We're going to come up through the first hole in the super duo. And then we're going to go through the second hole in the super duo right here. So now we're coming out towards the bottom. So we will add our next unit super duo on the bottom side of our super duo that we're coming out of. So we'll pick up a super duo, drop it down, line it up underneath the super duo that we're adding to, and then come out of the second hole in that super duo you just added. Squish it up tight against the super duo that you're adding to, and then now we're coming out of the top side, so we're going to add our 11/0 super duo, 11/0 super duo. So we'll pick up an 11/0, a super duo, an 11/0, a super duo, and we will then go into the 11/0 on our work. And then we will come up through the second hole, or the inside hole of the super duo we added just now for this unit, and we'll come up through it, and then we'll sew through the entire unit since we're coming out on this side and we need to get to the opposite side to add our next unit. So we'll just go ahead and sew through these, just like this, and turn our work. Now if you have a unit that's coming out that looks really loose or something, you can always sew back around it. That's not a problem. But if you don't have to do that, it saves a little time. But if you have to do it, that's okay. You can do it. Now we're coming out of the bottom here in the second hole. We are going to go into this outside hole here. Now we're coming out towards the top again, so we're going to add one to the top of our super duo here. So we're going to pick up a super duo. Let me back off just a little. It's just too close. We're going to pick up a super duo, And then we're coming out of this hole, we're going to go into the second hole of the super duo we just picked up. And pull those beads together tight. Like that. And then we will pick up, no, we will not pick up anything because we need to attach to this 11-0. And remember, there are no 11-0 seed beads underneath the super duos on the bottom part that attaches to the body of work. So we're just going to go directly into this 11-0 right here. Just like that. And then we are going to pick up a super duo, an 11-0, a super duo, and an 11-0. We're coming out of this here, this little 11-0 here. We're going to go up into the second hole, or the closest hole to our 11-0 here. And then through the 11-0 on the work, here. And then up through the first hole in the super duo, the closest hole to the 11-0 you're exiting, and then down through the second hole in the super duo, and you will start your next unit. And you will just work all the way to the end, putting these little embellishment of super duos all the way down the bracelet, and we'll be back. Okay, so I have finished my entire side of my super duo embellishment. I am now, let's get a little closer here, I'm now coming out of the little super duo in the second hole right here. Let me get a little closer so I can show you. Oh, that's too close. There we go. I'm coming out right here in this little second hole, or the inside hole of the super duo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go into this fire polish bead right here. Let me turn it. Now I have cut off my tail, and I've decided I didn't want to use it, so I cut it off. And so when you begin your project, you don't necessarily need to leave a long tail. I cut it off, and then I just used a lighter and kind of seared it down a little bit to get it out of my way. So you want to make sure it doesn't go into the inside of the 11-0 seed bead there, or the fire polish bead. Just sear it to the end there. And then once we put all our rest of our stuff in, you won't be able to see it. But here, we're going to go ahead and add the end for our clasp. So I'm going to back off so you can see what I'm doing here a little bit better. I can stay in frame. And then we are going to pick up, I'm going to pick up my second color, 11-0 seed bead. Well, first, I'm coming out of the fire polish bead here. I want to go into the 11-0. Just like that. I want to do that first, so that now we're prepared to put our clasp on. Then we will pick up an 11-0 of the second color, and then we will pick up one of our fire polish beads, like this. Then we're going to pick up an 8mm crystal, or whatever 8mm round you're using. It can be a pearl, whatever. And then we're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead. I'm going to use my other color here. And it doesn't matter what colors you use, just however you want to do it. So we have on here an 11-0, a fire polish, an 8mm round, and an 11-0. And we're going to come down around the 11-0 on the top here, and just avoid it. We don't want to go through it. And we're going to do a little fringing stitch, and pull our thread all the way through, and pull it tight like this. And then we are going to, let's get just a little closer. Then we're going to pick up, I'm going to go down through the fire polish bead here also. Should have went through that one too. Go through the fire polish bead, and then we will pick up another 11-0 for our second color here. And we started on this side of the bead. We have everything coming out of this side of this little 11-0. So we'll come into the opposite side of the little 11-0 like this. and that's what you will have. Now sew up around this one more time. So you'll just go up into this 11-0, into the 8mm round, the fire polish bead under it, and then into your little fringing bead on top like this. Back down into the 8mm round, down into the fire polish bead, and then we'll go into the other 11-0, the one on this side, here. And we'll go into the 11-0 on our body of work, here. And now we're going to sew down into this unit here so that we can get over to this one to do the same thing. So we're going to go down into this fire polish bead right here. We're going to sew into this 11-0 here. Oops. I hope you saw what I was doing. So what I've done is I went into this fire polish bead here, and then through this 11-0 here, and then we're going to go sew down so that we can sew all the way around this little unit here. So we're going to go ahead and sew here, into here, into here. I'm just going to come all the way up to the top until we are into here. So now we're going to pick up an 11-0 of the second color, a fire polish bead. What do I have going on here? Oh, it's a dog hair. Haha. Yeah, a little bit of my dog is everywhere. Okay, so I pick up 11-0, a fire polish bead, and then my crystal, my 8mm round, and then an 11-0. Bring that all down right there. Let's back off a little more. I just cannot stay in frame. So there we are, right there. Now we're going to go around the 11-0 on the top here, into the 8mm round and the fire polish bead, just like this. And then we're going to pull. Get it all down flush and nice and tight. Pick up an 11-0. Come into the second side. Everything's coming out of this side here. So after we pick up our 11-0, we're going to go into the opposite side of the 11-0 on our body of work. Pull. And there you have it. Sew all the way up around again through this clasping, and we'll be back. Okay, so I have finished securing my little clasp band here. So now I came out and I sewed through the little 11-0, and then I sewed down through the fire polish bead, and I am now ready to come up into my first 11-0. Now if you come out the opposite way after securing, you can sew through your unit this way until you can make it to your 11-0 on this side. So if you need to sew this way and around the unit to get to it, you can. If you're coming out here and you can go through here, this little 11-0, and then through here, and then through here, then you're fine too. So either way, you just have to figure a little path to get to your little 11-0 right here. So now I'm going to come through my little 11-0 after I tangle my thread here. Okay, so now I'm going through my little 11-0, and I'm going to start the same embellishment here. And because this embellishment is a little bit confusing, I will start it and show you a couple more times, and then we'll finish it to the end. And then we'll start our next embellishment. So what we will do here is we are going to pick up, make sure you check some super duos, pick up a super duo, an 11-0, a super duo, an 11-0, and a super duo. And you're coming out of this side of the little 11-0, we're going to go into the opposite side. Now on the first one here, we're going to sew back through this entire little unit we just added, just to make sure that it's nice and firm and straightened up and all that stuff. So I'm just going to sew through the entire unit again, just like this. Okay, so I have secured that. Now I am coming out of the 11-0 seed bead. I need to come up into the first hole closest to the 11-0 where I'm at of the super duo. Come up through it. And then I need to hop down into the second hole of the super duo that I'm coming out of. Like this. And then I need to pick up a super duo. Like this. And drop it down. Bring it up and underneath the super duo, the previous super duo we were working out of. And then come up. You're coming out of the first hole here, out of the two super duos, lining them up. Come up into the second hole here. Just like that. So that this super duo lies underneath this super duo, nice and neatly. And then you will pick up an 11-0 seed bead, a super duo, an 11-0 seed bead, a super duo, and then, yeah, just like that, 11-0, super duo, 11-0, super duo. You're coming out of the super duo here, you're going to go into the 11-0 here and up through the super duo, like this. And then you're going to sew through this entire unit till we get to the super duo on the other side. Then we can start our next unit. When you get here, your tension needs to be really good or these will look really sloppy. So pull nice and tight when you get through, just like this. And then you will go up through, you're coming out of the first hole here, you'll go up through the second hole of your super duo. And now your needle is facing up, so you pick up a super duo and you will place the super duo on top of the super duo instead of underneath it. And you'll just follow whichever way your thread leads you, putting them on top or on bottom. If it's on top, then you will lay your bead on top here. You will slide down into the second hole of your new bead. And then you will go down into your 11-0. Instead of adding the rest of your super duos and your 11-0s on top of the unit, you'll go down into the 11-0 and attach the unit. Just like this. Now you're coming out of the 11-0 on your body of work. You will finish the rest of your unit by picking up a super duo, an 11-0, a super duo, and an 11-0. And you will come back into the second hole of the super duo you just added, back down into the 11-0 on your body of work, like so, into the first hole of your super duo, and then down through the second hole of your super duo, and you will start your next unit adding one underneath. And you will do that all the way to the end of your piece, and we'll be back. Okay, so I have finished my last, or my entire side all the way to the end of my super duos. Now, I went ahead and sewed around my last unit twice just to secure it, and I'm coming out of the top of this last little super duo here in the first hole, the hole closest to the 11-0 that I'm attached to. Now I'm going to go from this inside hole to the outside hole right here. I'm going to add a little embellishment across here to work my way over to the other side, and then we'll do our embellishment on the end here. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up a fire polish bead onto our needle. We're coming out of the top of this super duo here. Let me back off just a little bit here. we are coming out of the Super Duo right here. Now we are going to go into this little 11-0 here with our Super Duo. Right there. Bead mat's moving around, excuse me. There we go. Now, we're coming out of this little 11-0 here. We're going to pick up a Super Duo, or not a Super Duo. We're going to pick up a fire polish bead. And then we're going to go from this bead to this bead. The beads that our little loops are attached to. So we're going to go from this 11-0 to the 11-0 here. Just like this. And attach it, just so. And then we're going to, and these are going to kind of sit up above the right angle weave, the main body of work. That's okay. They just sit up above it a little bit. And then we're going to pick up one more. And we're coming out of this 11-0, we're going to go into the outside hole here of this Super Duo on the other side of our bracelet. Here. Just like that. Then we're going to pick up another fire polish bead. And we are going to go down into the hole of the next Super Duo around the corner here, just like that. And now we are going to start putting our crystals on. So we're just going to pick up a big 8mm crystal, and we're going to go from top hole in the Super Duo to top hole in Super Duo, like this, all the way down the side of the bracelet. And just keep placing your 8mm round beads until you get to the end. Make sure you pull them tight and everything looks nice and neat. And when you get to the end, we'll be back. Okay, so I finished my entire side of my 8mm round embellishment. And now I am going to, and with this embellishment, these can be fire polish 8mm, they could be pearls, whatever you want them to be. And then we're coming out of the top of the Super Duo here after putting the last 8mm round in. We're going to pick up another little 4mm fire polish. And we're going to go from this Super Duo, let's get close here, this Super Duo here to the top hole of this Super Duo here. And just pull it through, just like that. And then we're going to pick up another Super Duo, and we're going to go from the top hole in this Super Duo to the 11-0 that our little clasps are attached to here. And pull it. Don't pull it so tight that it bunches, but pull it to where it just kind of lays just on top of the other beads like this. And then pick up another 4mm fire polish. And if it looks like you need a little seed bead in here, you can always use a little 15-0 in between if you'd like, so that there's no thread showing. Then go into the next 11-0 seed bead that you have your clasp attached to. And pull it through. Just like that. And then grab one more fire polish bead and go in from this 11-0 into the top hole of this Super Duo here on the side. Just like that. You can see how that looks. I can turn my piece here. And that's what that should look like. They just kind of lay on top, just like on this side. They just lay on top. And then we'll pick up another 4mm fire polish, and we will go from this top hole to this top hole here. And now we will start working our way down the opposite side of the bracelet here, this side, with our 8mm rounds from top hole to top hole in our Super Duos. So just grab an 8mm round and pop it in. And do that all the way the entire length of the bracelet, and we'll be back. Okay, so I have finished my entire side of embellishments on my second side here. And I am now coming out of this little Super Duo right here. And now you can see I have little fire polish beads on the corners and on the other side too, from here to here. So I have to finish that up on this side too. So I'm going to pick up a fire polish bead onto my needle, and I am just going to go through the second hole in this Super Duo here, and pull it tight. And then I am going to sew into this fire polish bead here. Pull it nice and tight, make sure everything's nice and even. And then I'm just going to sew into this little 11-0 here, and then down into the unit, the fire polish bead, down into the unit beneath it, so that I can tie off my thread and secure everything. I'm just going to sew through here a few times, and you can sew through as much of your work as you'd like, and just make sure you follow your thread path. Now I am going to go here and tie a half hitch knot right between this 11-0 and this fire polish bead, trying to keep my thread, my knot between the beads and not on top of them, over them, whatever. So I'm just going to guide my little knot right down in between there, just like that. And then I am going to continue sewing around, and then I will cut my thread off a little long, sear it with a lighter, and we'll be back. Okay, so I went ahead and sewed through my body of work and tied off and seared the end of my thread with a lighter, and this is what the finished piece looks like. Now, I told you earlier that you should only make your base of work to touch each other and not overlap. But conceivably you could, because once I did that, it looks as if the size of the beads on the edge kind of shrinks it down a little bit. So if you want some more movement, you could conceivably go even a row over them touching when you wrap it around your wrist. Or let's just say I did 18 rows of my base right angle weave. I could have done 19 and gotten away with it very well and still had a little bit of room to wiggle. Here it fits like a cuff more than it fits like a loose bracelet, which is fine because it is wide and it kind of holds my little clasping together fine. So that's fine too. But like I said, if you want to make it a little longer, do another row. And then we can just take it off like this. Just pull them around, the little things, and then that is what your finished bracelet looks like. Let me grab the other one that I made last night. Now the one thing I did notice when making the loops around that go around your beads, make sure that, I told you 17, but make sure that they fit, because I noticed that the beads that I used on this one are smaller, and when I designed this one last night, the 17 beads worked perfectly. But this one, they're more round. These are a little bit more oval and these are more round. And I had to take this apart and add 2 more beads to my loops. So make sure that you fit around your bead to make sure that it's going to fit before you make your loops just at 17 beads. Because evidently, even though these are 8mm beads, they measure differently than these ones do. These are more round and these are more oval. So like I said, no matter what you're using, a pearl, whatever, just make sure that you kind of test it before you just put the 17 beads on there. And that's what this looks like. And this one I did in bronze and Picasso gold, Super Duos, and then topaz crystals. This one I did in an amethyst metallic crystal. I did it in an alexandrite 4mm fire polish, and an amethyst metallic Super Duo. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and have fun. Bye-bye.